Hello, this is Mrs. Neill, and this is Mrs. Neill's Geometry Lesson 4, Basic Constructions. What we're going to be doing today is our vocabulary, which is perpendicular lines, symbol for perpendicular, perpendicular bisector, angle bisector. Then we're going to do 4 basic constructions. One construction is congruent segments, then congruent angles, then perpendicular bisector, and then angle bisector. So let's look at our first vocabulary word, which is perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines are 2 lines that intersect to form right angles. So basically, I'm just going to sketch this out right now. In just a minute, we're going to do a construction of an angle bisector. But I'm just going to sketch it. So if I had 2 lines, one going up and down, and let's say one going left and right, and I'm going to have those intersect to form right angles. So what that means is that these 2 are perpendicular to each other, and this forms a right angle right there. And as if you remember, a right angle is 90 degrees. Well, there's another right angle over here, and that's 90 degrees. There's one down below, and there's one on this side too. So actually, when you have 2 lines that are perpendicular, they form 4 90-degree angles. And we'll go into a little more detail about that in just a minute. All right, the symbol for perpendicular is just this little upside down T. And let me write that a little bigger. Looks like a capital T that's upside down. So instead of writing out the big word perpendicular, you can just put this symbol right here, and I will know that you mean the word perpendicular. So use that symbol for perpendicular. Our next word, and this is a little bit longer, is perpendicular bisector. Well, let's take this in parts, and then I'm going to just sketch a diagram, and then we'll do something with a basic construction in just a minute. The perpendicular bisector of a segment is a line, segment, or ray that is perpendicular to the segment at its midpoint, thereby bisecting the segment into 2 congruent segments. So let's take this in parts and draw it. So a perpendicular bisector of a segment. So I'm going to draw a segment right here, meaning a line segment. Okay, you start out with a line segment. And then I'm going to draw a line or a segment or a ray that is the perpendicular bisector. So if I drew a line, okay, there's a line right there. Or I could draw a segment. I could cut that off, see how that's a segment right there, or a ray. So this is your perpendicular bisector right here. And what this perpendicular bisector is doing, it's dividing this segment at its midpoint. So the midpoint of that segment is right here. So if I name this A, and this is B, and let's name this X right here. This perpendicular bisector divides this segment into 2 congruent parts right here. That means that this segment AX is congruent to segment BX. They're the same size. Also, another thing it does, it creates right angles. If you notice, right here is a right angle. And then, of course, kind of like the drawing I just did a minute ago, that's a right angle over here, and there's a right angle there, and then there's a right angle there. All right, our last vocab is angle bisector. Angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into 2 congruent coplanar angles. So I'm going to sketch this right now, and in just a minute we're going to do a construction of it. So if I had an angle right here, and I want a ray that's going to divide this into 2 congruent angles. So my ray is going to go right through here, and I'm just going to sketch it right now. Let's see, that looks like that's about right. So there's my ray right there. And what it does, it divides this big angle into two congruent angles. So for example, if this angle over here is 30 degrees, this angle over here is 30 degrees also. And also remember our arc marks. The arc mark tells us that that's congruent, that angle, and that angle is congruent, and they're congruent to each other. Okay, let's look at our constructions. We're going to do 4 basic constructions. Now, when you do constructions, you need to be very, very accurate. You're not going to be sketching these out just freehand. So what you want to use is, you want to have a straight edge right here, so you can make a nice straight line. And then you also need a compass. This compass will help you create nice arcs and be able to have an accurate drawing. So you do need these 2 items, and then I'm also going to use a pen or a pencil to help me label stuff. So let's do our very first one, which is congruent segments. Now, if you have me for your geometry teacher, all 4 of these constructions are done in your textbook. So you can have your textbook open and follow along also, and use that as a guide too. But the first one we're going to do is congruent segments. So when you construct, we're given segment AB, and we're going to construct a new segment CD so that CD is congruent to AB. So what we're going to start out with is a ray. I'm going to construct my new segment CD right underneath this one. So I'm going to draw a ray, and I'm going to name it ray. I'll make it a little bit longer than that. I'm going to name it ray C. Then what I'm going to do, I want to construct a segment that's the same length as this one. Now I'm not just going to measure it with my fingers and mark it. I'm going to use my compass to accurately design this. You're kind of like the architecture of this construction. So what you want to do is take your compass and open it up to where point B is. Then I'm going to prove that I measured it. So I am going to make an arc mark. Now when I do my arc marks, I want to go through right like that. See, I proved that I measured it. So now I'm going to take this and measure it down here and use the same width of my arc. See, I'm making a mark right there. And now I'm going to put a point there, and we're through with the first one. That's CD. CD is the same measure, the same length as line segment AB. Okay, let's go to our next one. It is congruent angles. So I'm given angle A. I'm going to construct angle B right down below here so that A and B look exactly alike. So I'm going to start by making a ray. I'm going to call it ray B, kind of like we did just a minute ago with the line segment. I'm going to make a ray, and I'm going to make it pretty long. That's okay. I'm going to make sure I have enough room to get everything done. And I'm going to name it B. Now I need another ray going off right here. I'm not just going to sketch it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my compass to help me measure and accurately do this. So what you do is the first step is you go point A right here, and then I'm just going to mark this. Now I'm going to move my paper on this one because sometimes when you move the compass it jerks or it moves or swivels or something like that. So I'm moving my paper. Notice that? And I'm making an arc mark right there. And I'm going to come right here and I'm going to do the same thing. Notice I'm holding my compass kind of at an angle and I'm making a nice swipe right there. I hope you can see this. Okay, so I've done that one. I got a swipe here, an arc here. I've got swipe that and I made an arc. Now I still need my ray coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this opening right here. Let me go ahead and put some points here so you can see where that hits. And I'm going to measure this right here as best I can. And I'm going to arc it showing you I measured that. See, I'm moving my paper. I'm not moving my compass. I measured that arc. And I'm going to go right here and do the same thing. Okay, there. I had to do it a few times to get a dark line. So if you noticed, I opened it up, made an arc, opened this up the same width, made an arc. So now look at these two arc marks. They are forming a point. And that gives me the point for my two rays. See, I've got these 2 points, so I can draw a ray from there. There we go. And that's angle B. Now angle B, the rays on it are a little bit longer, so I'm going to kind of cover that part up. But if you look, angle A is congruent to angle B right there. Number 3, this is a perpendicular bisector. So what we're going to build is we're going to build line XY so that XY is perpendicular to AB. So I'm given AB right here, and what I'm going to do is draw line XY. And line XY is going to be a line going right through there in the middle. And I'm going to do it very accurately with my compass and my ruler. I'm just not going to guess and then just draw a line through there. That's not the way we do constructions. So, and I'm going to build this perpendicular bisector right on top of AB. I don't need to redraw it or anything. So what I want to do is I want to take my compass and I want to open it up to more than halfway open. I'm going to be probably about 3/4 of the way open. See right there how wide that is? Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to make an arc from that point. Then I'm going to take an arc from B. See how they intersect each other? I created a point right there. That's a point right there. Now I'm going to do it down below. Okay, so I'm going to take A, and I'm going to turn this around so I can get this done correctly. See how I made an arc mark right there? There. Now I'm going to take B, and I'm going to do another arc mark. There we go, right there. See, I've got a point up above, and I've got a point down below. 2 points make a straight line. So I'm going to draw that straight line. All right there. And that's going to be line X and line Y. That's a perpendicular bisector. This line is. What this line did is this bisected this segment into 2 congruent parts. So this part right here, this is the midpoint. Let's name it Z. This is the midpoint. So AZ is the same as BZ. Plus, it created 4 right angles, didn't it? Right there. We use this diagram and this concept all through geometry when we're dealing with other type of topics. So you'll be seeing this again later on. Last one is angle bisector. So what we want is we're going to construct a ray AX to be the bisector of angle A. So what we're doing is we're going to build a ray that's basically going to go right through there. Why don't I just eyeball it and sketch it? Because we're doing a formal construction and we need to show that we did it. You're kind of like the architecture of this construction right here, and you want to make it, have it look really good and prove that you are bisecting it correctly. And what we start is we're going to use this angle right here. I'm not going to create it down here. I'm going to work right on top of this. So what I do first is I swipe it and just kind of open it up. It really doesn't matter. I'm about halfway across there. Okay, that's your first step, is to make an arc right there. Now I'm going to open my compass up a little bit, and I'm going to make an arc mark out here, and then I'm going to make one right here. Oh, I probably need to make that first one a little bit bigger. See, I didn't make that big enough. So I'm going to have to swipe him and make him a little bigger. There we go. Make sure they cross. So what I did, I'm going to make that a point right there. And I took my compass and I arced right there. And then I took my compass and I arced right there. And then I made that right there. Okay, so I'm going to draw my ray. And it goes through right there. And I'm going to name that X right there. Okay, so what I did is I drew a ray right there, and I got X. So what we just now did was this angle right here is the same length as that angle right there. They're the same measure. And that is our lesson for today. I'm Mrs. Neill, and thank you for listening.